the wave. The love child of water and wind, sun and moon. I move energy, nutrients, life. I move you. I've captured your imagination since the beginning of time. You honor me, you chase me. I am a symbol of something wild that exists in you. But lately, it's I who feel wild. Choked by your trash, overheated by your pollution. It makes me sick, makes me lash out. Don't you know I can decimate you? What do you think I can do to your currents, your coastlines, your climate? My requirements are simple. Stop stripping the forests that keep my water clean. Stop filling the atmosphere with dead carbon. And keep your plastic to yourself. Work with me now, before it is too late. I'll keep coming. I am the wave.
People talking about what an interesting set of people who are together. Isn't it weird sharing this conversation with your competitors? I say, well, yes, if you had that mindset, if I believed that, say, Return Home and Recompose and Earth were my competitors, then yeah, that would be a kind of weird design for us to come and share a message with you. But I hope that what you understand is that we view obscurity as our competition, and we view the lack of information, the lack of good information about this technology as our competition. And we view the original operators who have made similar investments emotionally, financially, in the human interest of building organizations. We've watched a few organizations do that really, really well. And we're immensely grateful of the quality of service that our co-opetition is performing in this moment. And one of my very first introduction to what I would call a world-class natural organic reduction facility was when I walked into the Return Home facility in Washington State. And it blew my hat in the creek. And Micah had built a facility there that I would be proud to send a family member to, and that was inspirational to us in our development of what can be possible with families. And then they've gone on to build the team more and more, and I watch Return Home winning award after award and recognition being given to what an amazing place it is to work, and the family feedback is, without question, it's all exceptional. And so I'm proud to bring our friends and our allies in the movement of getting the word out about the way these services can be delivered. And so I look at Micah as a fantastic and inspirational business person who I've learned a lot from, especially about the way that he treats his team and the way that he carries his message. And Katey, and those of you that know the Return Homies, y'all know that they wish that Bree was here with them as well, because Bree's such a central component to their messaging, and they do a brilliant job messaging. I don't know how they get so many followers and talkers and tweeterers, but they do such a great job of sharing this message. And so I'll quit bragging on them and let them brag a little on themselves. But what you're going to hear this morning, I asked them to talk about the sensitive conversations that come when we're discussing something that really has its roots in livestock mortality composting. And we're sitting in a tender moment with families who have perhaps are having the worst day of their lives. And how do you blend something that's technological and biological with something that's so sensitive and emotional? And so I'd like to turn the stage over to the NFDA National Funeral Home of the Year winners, Micah Truman and Katey Houston, my return homies.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. I'm just going to start off with a quick talk about Seth. This is a brand new industry. We are going hell-bent for leather to, win and do our best. Seth reaches out to me, he says, I want to do an association. I want to reach out to y'all. I'm like, are you kidding me or something? Understand that generosity of spirit is the ultimate flex. There's nothing that shows a human being to be more confident than when you stand in front of another group and bring in your competitors. It was a lesson to me. It showed strength, it showed graciousness, it showed quality of character. So a quick round of applause for the Vidal machine.
I will say I did just get a text message from Bree that said, ooh, Seth with the shout out.
Damn if you ain't all beautiful. My name is Micah.
I'm Katey. We're going to do what we call here an itchy and scratchy. So I'm going to say the interesting stuff, and Mike is going to try and say the funny stuff.
We'll do the funny stuff. First one, I was just saying, Seth, are we allowed to put the monster in Grandma's? Yeah, okay. I'm going to see. We're talking quality of character. I want to see your strength. Moving on.
Excuse the papers. Micah gets off track, and this is how I rein him back in.
Okay.
Oh, I have a clicker.
Quick show of hands. How many of you have sat in front of someone who is completely unfamiliar with terramation human composting and tried to explain it to them? Right. And they look at you like you're a little crazy. There are many of us here who do this as a job on a daily basis. And I am very accustomed, many of us are very accustomed to sitting at someone who looks at us like a cuckoo bird, right? When my son was graduating from 8th grade, I was sitting with a woman, very nice lady. She said, so what do you do? And you know that enthusiasm is my jam. It's like, I was like, I compost human bodies. I turn them into soil. It's baller. And she goes, that's morbid. And then she moves back 3 pews because 1 pew clearly was not safe. The most important thing we do when we talk to our families, to our people, to the public, to the press, about what we do as human composters, as terramators, is we have to use a very specific lexicon, right? And if we use certain words that just don't resonate, it's going to be really rough on the person. And you have about 5 seconds when you first talk to them to lower their defenses. If you blow it, you're out. You're now morbid, and they're moving back 3 pews. And with that, Katey, it's yours.
So just quickly to run through the words that we use for our process of natural organic reduction is what it's legally called. Human composting is what most of the public call it. Body composting, recomposition. We use the word terramation, soil transformation, and my favorite,
mulching.
Which I learned actually from Dr. Carpenter Boggs yesterday is a different thing.
Oh, we still use it. Well, we not being us, but we digress.
Words that we use for the vessels that we put people in. Chrysalis, cradle, pod.
Mulch machine, chest freezer.
Those are from TikTok. Words that we use for the services that we offer at Return Home. It's a laying in. The natural funeral has a laying out at the end of the process. We dress people in a wisp. Other people dress in shrouds. So we've talked about the words that we do use, but there's really one that we don't say enough. The greatest challenge of our industry as a whole, a funeral industry, is that there's things that we don't talk about. And for us, for this, human composting is literally life and death. We have to live it and breathe it and show it every single day. Simply transparency. But what does that really mean? For us, it's been brutal to learn about. We screwed up, we made mistakes, we had to figure out how to make those mistakes right for our families. And every single time, our Northern Star was transparency. And let me tell you, transparency, she is a cruel mistress.
Again, if we make it sound like we knew what we were doing, or if it sounds even vaguely propaganda, please disabuse yourself, like, forthwith. I, in my head, had a very clear belief in transparency, and every ounce of will in my body went against it, right? So we're going to give specific examples. You go, yeah, like transparency, like, let's do it. And then a mother comes in and asks for something that is something I've never done, that we didn't design our facility for. I'm terrified. And now we're going to find out if we really mean business. And my experience is I don't always mean business, and I back off. And that's when Katey slaps me and takes over. So, go back one, I'm sorry. We owe our family the unvarnished truth. We have to give them everything that they need. Anything they do not know or understand, they will invent a terrible story for. It's what we've always done. Horror movies are set in funeral homes. It is no accident, right? So we have to be able to give them the information they need, for one, that lets them make informed choices. And two, we need to meet them where they are and do the things they need. And sometimes the things they need have not really been done in a lot of ways in a very long time. Maybe some, not very much. And that is a much larger jump than I had previously imagined.
So we're not here to tell you return homes perfect and follow us for how to do transparency. But we are here to show you that we made mistakes and how we made them right, and that every time we screwed up, it was because we were not transparent.
I look at my early interviews, the thing about our business, for Seth, for Katrina, of course, we've all been in the press a great deal. You know, in my case, like, I have a face for radio, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I didn't believe the world would want exactly what we had. What I mean is when we designed Return Home, it was conceived of much like a crematorium, right? I think I'd mentioned this yesterday. You know us, ostensibly you trust us, we're trustworthy. You're going to give us your loved one, the person you love most. You are not going to get near us. We're going to pick that person up from your house or the morgue or wherever that place is. And we are going to then deliver soil to you. You're never going to set foot in our facility. And obviously, I was completely wrong. I think it was Katrina who in the very beginning goes, Micah Truman, finance bro. And she was right. Complete noob. Really didn't understand the depth of this, the value of this, the inherent pain in this. And obviously, that's been a huge journey. Eventually, we found that people did start coming in droves. And we're going to give you a couple stories of how that happened, where we completely blew it, and hopefully where we might have gotten better and been able to offer more to our families.
So for me, in walks Cindy, and this is a picture of her in front of her son's vessel. She lost her 37-year-old son to cancer. He chose human composting himself, and at first she was like, that is disgusting. But she quickly grew to love us. They had a service at our facility, a laying in, where 50, 60 of his friends and family showed up, and we had cute little Cindy in her little cardigan and, her family, and then his bouncer friends from the clubs in Seattle, where they were like tattooed head to toe purple. And
like, no pictures, I mean purple.
Yeah. And one of them had sharpened teeth. That was pretty cool. But they were all just like gathered there together in this community grief space, just comforting each other, which we did not think we would see. Not only did they come, they came in absolute droves, and we needed to meet them where they were at and allow it to happen. So this is what Cindy said to me. It's Christmas. I need to see him. She calls me Christmas morning.
Thanksgiving too.
I'm not American. I don't celebrate Thanksgiving.
I'm Jewish. I don't care about Christmas.
I mean,
Sorry, fellas.
Fair.
Moment of weakness.
Okay, so she calls me Christmas morning. She's like, Katey, it's Christmas. I need to see my son. And I'm serving this family, so I'm like, yeah, I'll get in the car. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Meet me there. And she is sat there at Christmas, decorating her son's vessel, bringing his Christmas present, and leaving it with him. And that completely changed how I saw how our facility was going to work.
Don't that look like crap? So here is our facility as we first designed it, with one lonely or two lonely little vessels that are decorated. Again, we didn't know that people would be decorating. And it was really interesting, you guys, to see how the sadness worked. The sadness actually worked two ways. On the one side, people felt a little bit lonely, that their loved one's vessel was decorated, but there was nothing decorated around it. But nothing compared to the heartbreak of someone who walked in who maybe gave us their loved one from out of state and realized that the next door vessel was so beautifully designed, and yet their sons had not been. And so, we realized that we had a serious problem on our hands. We needed to make sure that our families could come in and grieve as they need to. And we also needed to make sure that people didn't feel like other vessels around had somehow had less or more love or less love, because death knows none of that. Distance is a challenge. There are so many things. So it was heartbreaking to all of us. And literally, you can tell I'm a teeth grinder, right? So I'm sitting there, and Cindy's sitting in front of the vessel, and I'm thinking, holy cow, like, we can do so much better than this, right? But how? And that became our next challenge. So if there was ever a story that brought that home for us, we're a video crew, so we find that tends to be somewhat impactful. This is Tehani, and Tehani was the one that really taught us what it means to have a facility, why the families mean so much when they do it, why the children need to be involved in it. So if we could roll Tehani's video, I'd appreciate that. You guys know Alexis in the back is just making the freaking rain fall, right? So, a lot of things we took away from that, aside from the fact that it was still some of the more powerful things I've ever seen. Look at the kids. Look at what the kids are doing. They have a job. They go off in a corner, they're filling the vessel with beautiful things, covering it with art. Someone brought a couple strings of LED lights. That was freaking baller. And suddenly we found that all these kids had a place and a part. And we also realized that they don't sit in rows, and they don't necessarily talk all at the same time. And that we need seating that doesn't necessarily resemble the wooden pews in order, as our culture has done, as some of our cultures have done for so long. And that was something that was really mind-blowing. Now notice as you look around the facility, they couldn't see that our facility was butt ugly. They could only see their beautiful person and what was going on. But we sure as heck could. And this was the real push for us to begin that transformation. And this is what we transformed to. We built 18, right now we had a couple problems to solve, right? Problem number one is, please, don't be ugly. And then the second is, you notice when the challenge of all those, I'm going to like punch Katey in the face, like talking with hands. When you look at all the vessels like this, right, you'll see some that are designed and then some that are not. And we needed someone to not only have a beautiful design around them, but they had to be laser focused on just their vessel in front of them. And while this doesn't show it, the panels slide, and it simply gives you your vessel in front of you. And that's been a real gift as we've done it. We then started doing our laying in ceremonies. We do it in our facility. You can see the chairs. That's a small one. They happened. Last week they RSVP'd with 50. As I said, in came 200. There's no seats for that. Stand around, do your best. We have a mezzanine. They pack up there. So it really becomes a very organic thing. The vessel you see in front of you there is where the person goes, and we've seen all kinds of variations on that. And I think Katey is much more qualified to address that in a little while.
I'm going to be inflammatory. Funeral directors in the room, don't hate me, please. Listen, hear me out. We quickly found ourselves having families flown in so far from 18 states in Canada, flown, driven, whatever. And we found that they were regularly being lied to by their local funeral homes that embalming was required to cross state lines and that it was illegal for them to drive their person to us. It is not, and I've heard it here actually multiple times because like the folklore has gone on for so long that we're still repeating that, oh no, you have to be embalmed to cross state lines. Truth is, only Alabama has that law. And
why Alabama? Because Alabama.
Fair.
Onwards.
So you folks that are funeral professionals in the audience, just by being here, you're the kind of funeral home that we needed to partner with in order to get our families access to the services that they needed for their grief journey. By a show of hands, how many of you here have a funeral home that would allow a family to drive their loved one themselves to us? Right on. How about, how many of you have tried to get an unembalmed body from a state far away with multiple layovers?
How'd it go? Okay.
Isn't it?
Yes.
And we're also going to drive her. And they were like, what?
Yeah. It's a little bit of a shift for a lot of us. Like my previous funeral home, I don't know that we would have been cool with that. It was a shift, a learning process, and we've had to coach some funeral homes through it. Like, please go to Walmart and buy some like picnic packs to like cool these people with. You can do it. It's not hard. I'm going to play you one more video here, and it is the story of Jonah, who was driven to us.
Today, we are going to discuss James, a young man who loved nature and gardening, and he passed away suddenly in a state that not yet allowed for human composting, which was his family's wish for him. When James passed, return home was one of the first phone calls his mother made. She had a secret about James, and she shared it right away. He's afraid of flying, she said, and she couldn't bear the thought of putting him on an airplane for the first time under these circumstances. Return home was just close enough that it occurred to me that she may be able to drive him. And we offered her that opportunity, and she accepted. And this mother, as a final act of love to her son, drove him from his place of death all the way to our farm in Washington State for the terramation to take place. When they arrived at the facility, it was about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. We greeted them and took him out of his container and put him on a table for her to spend time with him. She rubbed his head, took a couple of locks of hair, sang songs to him, and at that moment I knew nothing we ever did at Return Home was going to be duplicated. Not ever. Because every single moment could be so new and enriching and special, because everyone we serve is so beautiful and special.
Okay. Quick show of hands. Funeral professionals in the house. How many we got? Funeral professionals. Broadly, anyone in the funeral industry. Okay, we're gonna stick with inflammatory. We're gonna try to make you, in Chinese we call it, you know how you rub the shoulder like this and then you give them the shot. The funeral industry workers are America's untouchables. We always talk about untouchables in other countries. This industry is America's untouchables. Let's define. We are paid like crap. We work enormous hours. We are put and exposed to chemicals that are absolutely hazardous to our health. We're disrespected. Except, of course, when it's Thanksgiving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and your grandma's passed and someone had better get their ass over to your house to pick her up right away. No one's doing anything wrong. No one's doing anything bad. This is the culture that we have built up in our, in our country over time, and we bear the brunt of that. One of the most interesting ones I ever saw was talking to I love talking to the young funeral directors. It's so freaking cool, right? Like 3 years ago, I was like in a buffet line, and I'd never been with funeral people before. And I was like, my God, I'm like eating lunch with like funeral guys. In fact, Brian was like standing next to me. He like had lunch with me. It was great. What's really amazing, I think, about this is just how much we get hurt. And the really interesting part about it is how we as an industry, and I'm not saying we like you or you or you, I mean we, the funeral professionals, this industry, have become good soldiers. We made soil. Oh my God, it smells like petrichor. The smell of rain coming down on the hot ground. Holy cow, right? I'm psyched. And in comes these funeral directors, morticians at 40 years old. Every time, ready? I'm just gonna see, ready? I'm gonna see if anyone knows. Every time I sat with a mortician over the age of 40 and said, I have soil for you, do you wanna smell it? What did they say to me? They can't smell it. Most people who've worked with formaldehyde over the age of 40 cannot smell. I know, we're gonna get some pushback. But I'm telling you, as an outsider watching that, that was mind-blowing. Now remember, you can't smell, you can't really taste. You can't really taste is the least of your problems. You're taking formaldehyde through the thin membrane of your nose straight into your brain. It's a death sentence over time. Yet we, as an industry, will defend this. And if I had traditional funeral directors in here, they're gonna be taking me outside after this to talk to me. It's not my first rodeo, fellas. And so what we really have to do is look at that and think about how we as an industry, and this is why I'm so excited about what Seth and his team have done, is to change the climate of consciousness without, going too much fear of a black planet here. But we have to actually change how we look at this and really, really figure out how to recalibrate what we do as a group. Okay. Our second sin. We are water. We have no taste. We will help everybody. We're very kind. Do you know why our marketing is such crap? It's because we actually don't know how to say something because we're afraid if we say it, someone might not like it, right? And so we ended up doing Facebook, posts about our new, whatever, pet, which by the way, we do all the time. But the point is, we don't express who we are. We don't talk about us as professionals, the pain that we feel. We don't talk about the fact that those guys hurt, and so do we. And actually, it's a narrative that must be explained. And interestingly enough, the more we calibrate and show ourselves as human, the more the world will love and respect us. And we're guilty of not doing it. So one of the messaging things that we've done is to start to talk really a lot about what our people do inside the company and show it to the world. And it's weird, because you'll get a camera and you'll take a picture of a video or something and we'll look at it when it's posted and Katey will go, holy shit, Micah, I think 12 million people just saw this. And the reason that 12 million people want to see it is because it resonates with their heart. Now I'm doing Seth speak. It resonates with their heart. This is absolutely compelling. It measures our humanity. And there's something for that that we thirst for. So here's a clip that sort of shows that.
Spicy at all, dragons can't stand it. Why do dragons hate spicy salsa? Well, just one drop of hot sauce makes the dragons
Katey has a tradition. She just never told me. She always reads the last story to every child we take care of. That's what Katey does. I don't know if you noticed, but Katey's not prone to talking a lot. And when she does, she has something to say. And if she doesn't, she's just not going to bother. And she happened to read stories to children. That's just what Katey Houston does. So I walked in that day, and I'd worked with Katey for over a year, and she was doing that. And it was the 5-year-old. And it was crazy. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. So I filmed that. And I look at... Make a joke, make a joke, make a joke.
Just, you know, while he's collecting himself, Dragons Love Tacos is an amazing book. Should you? Yeah, it's a good choice.
One of the things we ended up doing was taking care of kids under the age of 18 at no cost, and it meant that we were taking children in large numbers. December saw us take 5, and it beat us up, okay, you know. So, that's what happened.
We as a culture, we America, as a culture, do not have the words to ask for what we want from our death care experience. We as funeral professionals, probably not including this room, me in my previous life, have done an amazing job of convincing families that after someone dies, their loved one becomes nuclear waste that only a professional can deal with. I have been always ready to include families in experiences with their people, but how do you do that when you're in a traditional funeral home? I can't take them into the prep room where there's chemicals and awful smells and dangerous things for them. So what Return Home has done is give me a space to include families in their loved one's care. But my biggest challenge was, how do I ask families those questions? How do I go from, I'll take your person, I'll do it, to, do you want to do it? Simply put, I did not have a choice. I had a mom come in and she told me, I gave him his first bath, I'll give him his last. She was going to do that, and I was not going to stop her. So we struggled through this awkward experience together, and it was healing for both of us. And I've asked every single family since if they want to be part of that bathing process. And it has led to incredible situations like Crystal's family, who I asked her, you know, do you want to come in and bathe your wife with me? And she said, hell no, you're weird. And then the next day she was like, yeah, I'm going to come in. I'm going to stand in the corner and I'm just going to, you can do it and I'll watch. And the next thing you know, she's dressed in her wedding dress. She's washing her wife's hair and she's singing so loud that all of us throughout the entire facility can hear it, and I'm kicked out. I'm not needed anymore because she cared for her in life and she was going to care for her in death, and I was not going to stop that. Once we give families the choice, their answer is often going to be yes. We just need to give them back the words to ask for it. So, we created this beautiful facility, right? You've seen it. It looks great. We're allowing families to participate in what they want to in their death care experience, but some of us still have hang-ups.
So, exactly, it's like, I'm with stupid. So we have the front of house, and the front of house has been designed, we're very proud of it. We know we're the only facility that offers it, and it's an ability for families to walk in, be with their vessel, sit next to it, participate in the experience. You know, like, congratulations, we've got it. And as far as I was concerned, that was what the service was, and that was what was going to be going on at Return Home. But our families had other ideas. And I did not come from this industry. And my answer to those types of requests is, no, hell no. You are not going to go from my front of house to my middle of house where we have machinery and all kinds of things that are not beautiful and not designed for the world. But in this case, that's kind of what happened.
So we, as a team, basically had to come together and figure out how we were going to bypass Micah and make it happen. And you don't do that, right? When the CEO of your company says no, you're like, okay, yeah, okay. And we're like, no, we're going to sit down and we got to create a framework that allows us to kick him out. And that framework was really simple. Does it show love? Is it safe? Does it work? If it's those three things, I can call an audible in 3 seconds and do exactly what we're going to show you next, which is...
One sec, and just realize, so I as CEO, right, boot me, kick me out, we're legit. If we make a mistake, I applaud you, right? We tried our best, we did it. But if we make that mistake, it's okay, but we just don't do it again. But mistakes, my God, like, let's go, let's try.
So I'm going to show you this video of Fritz and his family real quick. Back of house, that is a mom, Eileen, who watched her son die for 2 weeks in the hospital, and his wish was to be composted. And for her, that meant she was going to be there until the very end. So at some point during the day, she cornered me and said, "Can I come back there while you put the organics on top of him?" And I had 3 seconds to say, does it show love? Is it safe? Does it work? And I said, yeah, let's go. And I expected her to come back with me, and actually everyone came back, and everyone took that rake in their hand. And you can see there's this joy in her face as she says, I'm going over his face, I'm doing it, because she is carrying out her son's last wish to the end. And Micah was stood there quaking in his boots.
I was terrified. I find that I build frameworks around me that lessen my fear. And fear is what's all around me. It's okay. All right, it's all right. I'm just scared. But that fear sometimes prevents me as leader of the company from making heart-driven decisions that support our families. And if that really is the case, if my fear is too much, I actually need to be fired. Not permanently, hopefully, but from those processes. And maybe if I can't do it long enough, you need to fire me permanently. And that's why we have actually removed me from certain decision-making things. It runs counter to a lot of my instincts, but here we are.
It's really nice to be able to say, yeah, you're out of this one, Micah, I'm sorry. Like half of our TikTok videos wouldn't be up there if Micah had a call on it.
That TikTok video was viewed 51 million times.
Simply put, are we cuckoo bird now?
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
That was amazing. Thanks for almost making me cry a million times. The TikToks, absolutely amazing. I wonder, how do you guys, respectfully of course, ask families, can I film this? Can I post it on TikTok?
We have signs up in our facility that simply say, if you want to be part of our TikTok, if you want to speak to the media, let us know. Generally, at first, Micah would say, you want to ask this family if we can film something? And I'd be like, no, we're not invading in their space. And then families started coming to us, and they're like, we've seen your TikTok. Do you want to film this? So it's just getting used to asking, because the worst they can say is no. And then you're like, okay, no pressure.
Terrifying. Quaking in our boots. Well, actually, no, sorry. I quake in my boots. She goes, want to film?
No, I really appreciate it, because that, 51 million views on that, that's insane.
Yeah. It's the first one I saw. And his mom texted me as that video was climbing in views, and she's like, we're going to overtake your most viewed video. Like, it was amazing for her. She wanted to show off her son.
But remember, you guys, think of this as a two-way thing. Does Return Home want that out in the world? Of course we would like that. But remember, that mother did things that almost no mother has done for their son. And her greatest hope in the middle of this tragedy is that another mother can know that that's possible. Imagine that she has the ability to communicate that to 51 million people. The answer is, yeah, I think I'll take it.
We have a 16-year-old coming into our care today because of that video.
So you talked about the mistakes through this family side of it, but when you first started, were there any mistakes on the science side of it? Like when you first started, the composting side, or maybe a body didn't break down quite like you wanted, and how did you go about that with the family?
Yep. So the biggest enemy, and again, I haven't heard us talk about this a lot, but let's go there. This is an aerobic process, right? It takes oxygen for microbial activity to continue. The thing that we as an industry, again, I don't talk about it with my colleagues, but I know they got it, is anaerobic activity. That is, the airflow ceases to roll through the vessel at pace. What happens then is the body drops in temperature, airflow stops. Think of it like a fire when the air stops going through it, right? And you have to restart that. For us, right, we are a facility that moves air for a living with a sideline in transforming human remains into soil. If we successfully move air in our facility, we're going to have a good day at the office. If that airflow is impeded, and yes, it has happened, you're going to have that classic smell, that stench of death, of decomp. It produces methane. Methane is extremely polluting and ultimately explosive. So suffice it to say that everything about what we do is to ensure that airflow goes smoothly. We have had hiccups. We are very good at it at present.
So you evoked a lot of emotion in this room just from your videos, right? So obviously you do this a lot and you're hard into it. And I come from medical legal side of things, so the coroner is a little different in terms of emotions. How do you kind of regulate that, and how do families react if you do fall apart? I mean, because right, we're human, it happens, and you know, if you're an empath, someone cries, I'm gonna cry, right? So how do you deal with that?
He cries a lot. And
It's actually not. A 50-year-old, it's hard as a 50-year-old guy to be, no, I'm serious. The soundbite I should give you is, I cry all the time and it's just fine. Like, no, I'm a 50-year-old man. I worked in finance. Do not ever sit in a room and cry. Don't even talk to me about that.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you got one, but it, you know, here we are.
So for me, having Micah available to show his emotion from someone who's been in the funeral industry for a long time, and I really struggle to show mine. That's not, I don't. We've kind of got this balance now where he shows me that it's okay. I look over and he's doing the and I'm like, all right, yeah, this is a moment for me to let myself feel. I'm generally not a crier, but I am a feeler, and that ends up being hugging for me. And families don't care. They know we're human. Like, that's why they like us. We're human. And to show emotion to them, as long as you're not taking away from their grief, you're just being a part of the moment, it's totally fine. If you're falling apart, like talking to them on the phone, that's a problem. But like, to show emotion in the moment is not a problem at all. And I think we do ourselves a disservice as a funeral industry by not showing emotion, because then we're robotic.
But I think there's a balance to be struck. Like, they've got 500 blubbering people around them as is. Me standing next to them and blubbering too, I'm not trying to knock it, but I'm saying I don't know sometimes if that adds enough value. We need, and exactly right. So once again, the CEO is fired. Beat it, right? Let the professionals take over. So it is an act of great humility to realize those are my limits, dude, and I don't add value.
You talked about the woman moving far, far away from you in the beginning when you were describing what you did for work. I'm wondering if you found your elevator speech and if you would tell us what it is.
Hi, my name is Micah Truman. I'm the CEO of Return Home. Return Home gently transforms human remains into soil with great heart. We're really excited to be doing this. We have a facility that people can see. It's just outside of Seattle. We'd love you to visit.
Hey, Micah.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. Starting with you, and then Katey, if you don't mind touching on this. Micah, do you mind documenting your mindset from the beginning to now? The level of participation you needed from current funeral professionals to get you where you are. Was that a struggle? You know, letting them into your brain, and then Katey, can you kind of document kind of that struggle for you as well?
My belief is that I would have a bunch of really environmentally focused, technically focused people, and I would get myself in a funeral director for a bit of window dressing and to make sure we were legal. When Bree was first hired, obviously I talk for a living, and I always could. And when Bree came in, like, we just had this big, you think it was ugly after, sorry Kim, I might whack it. We had this big empty warehouse, like nothing had been put in it. And I'm like, and there's gonna be this, and there's gonna be that, it's gonna be so cool. And Bree's like, that's awesome. I'll take the job. Where's my prep room? And I'm like, what's a prep room? So really, this was the beginning of my understanding of this. Yes, of course we have huge heart. All of us have huge heart. But at our core, we are a group of professionals that know our business. And our funeral folks are rocket pilots. We deal with situations that are, for really, the only most trained and qualified. So if you're asking about where my mindset was, it was, they want to hug trees. They love children and puppies. They're really smart and they're eloquent. Let's hire them. Obviously, that change came quickly. The other part that I negated was that I believed that I didn't think funeral homes would want to be, or actually, that was right about that. I didn't want funeral homes to partner with us in the beginning because we were disruptors. My experience with the funeral industry is the finest group of people, the community that I identify with the most. The people I would call if shit really went down. You know, our joke with Katey is, if you called Katey in the middle of the night and say, I need a van and 15 towels, she'd be like, what time and what color van? You know what I mean? So I really feel like my change, Brian, was in understanding that the funeral community is absolutely the core of what we wanted. But the funeral community had one big problem. Our product line, our service line kind of sucks. And my job, our job, is to give that new set of services to this amazing group of people.
For me, it was kind of a radical change. I would have considered myself like one of the good old boys. Like I was in the cigar club with those dudes at the convention, like talking about the cool casket that I sold last week. Like I was one of those, and I was proud that I sold that $15,000 casket, and I was getting a trip to Batesville. Like, woo, let's go. So for me, the change was, how do I now motivate those people as the person doing outreach to funeral homes, those good old boys, to offer my service? And I quickly became very frustrated. And I realized that I was part of the problem when I was one of them. And what I actually needed to go after were the young funeral directors who still had excitement in their heart, that were not burnt out, that were not downtrodden by corporations and their big bosses that want you to sell that $15,000 casket 4 times a week. So for me, the change from being the guy with the array of black suits that all look the same to being allowed to be who I am and being allowed to be frustrated with those people, outwardly frustrated to them when they would not participate in giving services that families want.
Does it work? It works? Okay. When you were starting Return Home, what kind of red tape or public resistance did you find?
When you say red tape, are we talking about resistance from permits, regulators, government?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. So my background is in China. I'd worked most of my adult life in China. And the government in China is very, very tough to deal with, non-transparent, and the answer is automatically no. It's rough, right? And there's a huge set of rules. They're just not posted anywhere. I just love America, you know, like the rules, and they got numbers, and they stick them on a wall. And they observed that. They actually observed those rules, and I was able to go through it and get it done. The rules in our case were onerous. The biggest challenge we had, for example, Tom and us, right? You know, it's like chalk and cheese, but whatever. You know, they are a half mile from us, and it's no accident. We were zoned crematorium. All the tests we take are for cremation. I might as well take a juggling test, for crying out loud. Like, this has no bearing. So I guess what I'm saying is I found the regulators who worked with us were absolutely top-notch. And I thought they gave us a great opportunity and worked with us. I got a great one. So I didn't really know what pre-need was. So we're starting though, and I'm like, wow, pre-need, like, let's sell pre-need, you know? And so we're up there and we're starting to sell it, and I get a call from Pam over at the Department of Licensing, and she's like, Micah, do you have a pre-need permit? And kind of like the prep room, hey Pam, what's a pre-need permit? She's like, it's one you need and you're currently in violation. And I'm like, I got this. She's like, take down the page, get the permit, do it now, we're good. So that's the kind of thing that happens. So enforcement and the people who do it, top notch. The rules that they're working with kind of suck. And we really need, again, to work on that and make it better. Hope that answers it.
Hi, I have a question about transportation. So in my state, and I think it's only one in the state surrounding me, only funeral directors or funeral professionals can transport a body. I know at least the state below me, that's not the case. So I know we would have to adapt to that or try to fight for that when the time comes. But I'm thinking more about how do these families, if they're transporting them, transport? Because I know at least my experience, like if we're transporting an unbound body, it's in something like a Ziegler case. And a Ziegler case isn't exactly going to fit in the back of my Honda Civic if I want to transfer my daughter to the place myself. So my question is, how are these families transporting their loved ones to you? And do you offer a service to maybe help the people who are like me that drives a two-door vehicle that couldn't necessarily do it with the equipment needed? Thank you.
Yeah. So for us, there are a few states that are going to require a hermetically sealed container for you to take your person. And they make these things called BioSeal bags now that function exactly as a Ziegler case, but they're literally a bag that is like heat sealed around the outside. So then they can fit in a regular combo unit. So we've had those, and then families who are in states where it has to be a licensed funeral professional, we just have that funeral professional drive to a funeral home in the next state and the family pick up from there. There's ways around pretty much everything. It's just figuring out how to do it, and we want to be a resource for those funeral homes out there that want to offer it. So you have a problem or a question, or you need a BioSeal bag and you don't want to buy the whole roll because they're freaking expensive, we can send you one. Like, let's work in a partnership here to make this work for our families.
How many people working, Susie, you're there, how many Jewish funeral home folks do we have? Anyone else that's working Jewish funeral home? We love the Jewish funeral homes because they don't embalm, and they're incredibly adept at shipping just because that's a deal for them that often happens. So I remember we got stuck in St. Louis, Missouri with a decedent. Everyone said no to us, and we were like, let's call the Jewish funeral home. They were like, no problem, we got this, you know. So there is the resource there. It's just a matter of reaching out.
Oh, hey. I was wondering, I saw you guys have like over 70 vessels at your facility. Did you guys manufacture them, or have you guys thought about opening a second business to manufacture and sell to funeral homes that want to offer this, but the equipment is the issue?
Yeah, we think about that a lot. People call our facility like what Willy Wonka would build if he wasn't into chocolate. Everything we've built is bespoke. The vessels are made of a really dense, honeycombed polycarbonate, incredibly strong, very insulating. And so, yeah, we're pretty good at that. I am trying to get my head around what it means to take this out to the world. The problem is this. It's not like alkaline hydrolysis or cremation where we quarter pounder and, with cheese this thing, where we put this body in, we press our button, and voila, 2, 3, 6 hours later, we're done, right? This is 60 days. And it has to be done right, and there is a lot of human interaction with that equipment. I don't want anything to go wrong. I know that if anything goes wrong, and it will, the press will be on us like a cheap suit. And I think about that a lot. So the short answer is I very much want to provide this technology. But the longer answer is it's involved, and it takes 60 days. And if someone doesn't do it right, how does that work? So we're balancing it, but I see that as probably the fastest way to spread across the country, and I'm just trying to work out those kinks. And by the way, what's very interesting is in the early days when I was thinking about this, it would be like, I want someone who's really excited, and now what I want is like, I want someone who's a funeral director, knows this stuff upside down and backwards, is a consummate professional, and is committed to do this with everything they have. So speaking back to Brian's question, there's my flip.
We got one over here.
Katey, you said something to me last night that I think I'm over here.
Oh, yeah.
That I want everybody to hear. One of the things that I hear from within the funeral industry as a pushback to this is, well, if I have to drive them across the country or fly them, that offsets any good for the environment that this process does. And your response to that was awesome, and I just want everybody to hear that.
Yeah, and it totally does. You're flying someone across the country. I mean, that's bad, right? But maybe your family's not choosing it for the environmental impact. Maybe they're choosing it because they don't want burial and cremation. Maybe they're choosing it because they've experienced burial and cremation and it was not good for them. Maybe they're choosing it because they don't want to interact with a traditional funeral home. Maybe they're choosing it because it's the gentle alternative for them. Maybe they're choosing it because they want to participate in their death care experience. So don't lump everyone who chooses human composting into the tree hugger group, because actually 95% of them are not that come to us at all. There's just something innate in us about wanting to go back to the earth, and whatever way we figure out how to do that, we're going to do it.
That fight's going to happen no matter what.
And remember, guys, we do this instinctive thing. It saves lots of carbon, and the Earth's in terrible trouble. This is our obligation. True, but for someone who doesn't do that, that's not what you want. For someone who has a very different viewpoint about climate change and everything else, our answer to that is freedom. You want to go back to your land? You want to go be soil on your farm? You have that right. This is about freedom, and it is about freedom. So it is interesting that different things resonate with different people in different ways.
I think we probably have time for one more question here.
You were mentioning that if something bad were to happen with you in composting, that the price would be on like a cheap suit. I know it's kind of the Wild West right now, but do you think that there is something in line, sort of like how we have CANA for the crematories, some sort of regulatory agency beyond just the standard funeral home licensure?
Seth, do you want to take that question?
I'd love to. I'd love to. Thank you. I'm going to take that question and give you a behind-the-scenes look at the day before this conference happened. So on Wednesday of this week, all the 4 operators got together in a room right here at the hotel, and we discussed ways of potentially messaging when new legislative actions are happening. How do we collectively rally together? And this is actually a perfect close to this segment, which I want to go back to. Aren't these great competitors to have? Like when your competition is performing at that level, they're shining a light. They're a beacon of light for people to find this technology and to have this conversation. And that's what opens hearts and changes minds. And so that couldn't have been any better done. You guys hit it out of the park. And one more shout out to Bree, whose buttery voice joined us in those videos. Thank you, Return Home. As we move into break, I want to just describe today is going to be a lot more of a conversational tone. And to that end, I want to remind you and I want to encourage you that part of the juice of the conference is the information that we're sharing with you. And the whole other value is the connections of the people that you can meet and make in this room. And also, I was reminded last night as I was just thinking about the joy of that first day of the conference, like this is all my favorite people together. And the people who are here who are sharing the message they're hand selected and heart selected, and that goes for our entire ecosystem of people that we work with. like we're giving you our best, and we're sharing with you our finest resources, from celebrants to doulas to the partners who work in the funeral industry. And so I want to remind you that just outside this door, there is a Good Goodbye. There is the Colorado End of Life Collaborative. There's the Death Wives. There is the Colorado Burial Preserve. There are different land stewards, and everybody out here is a friend of this movement. And so please use this next break that we're about to go into. If you haven't connected with these people, they're my very best friends, and so I couldn't recommend to find a group. So let's go into break. We're going to come back at 10:30. Please be back here at 10:30. Thank y'all.